Well, here we are again on this 709 backhoe. I've still got a problem. After running it for about 5 or 6 hours, I've got a problem with this. I took the pin out of it, but this first spool is the only one that's got the 4-position cap on it, and the ball bearings falls out and gets under the spool. So I'm going to try to slide this thing back and fix the ball bearing, but let's see what happens. I'm hoping I can take this thing apart and just loosen the hoses and lift the control out of there and slide it up to the top of this where I can get the bottom off of it without having to take all the hoses off. If I have to take them off, I will. But the last fix I knew wouldn't last long because something wasn't right in there. So I'm going to try to engineer a solution for it without having to take it to the hydraulic shop and see what I can come up with. Let me get this thing taken loose and taken off of here and see where we go from there. Well, it ain't gonna come up out there far enough, I guess, because the hoses that goes under the bottom. I'll have to take these hoses off. Then we'll take it in on the bench and work on it, I guess. Well, here it is off the machine, and here's the one we're going to have to look into. I don't know why it's different than all the rest of them, but the spring return on that thing, the ball bearings falls out and gets down in that little cap. I guess somebody's put a different spool in it at some time, at some point. We'll take it apart and look at it. And here's the spool, and this is the spring that lets it return to center. It's got one spring for when you pull back. It's got one spring for when you push the stick out that's made up of this little cone in here. Underneath each of these set screws there should be a ball bearing and a spring. What happens is the ball bearing gets dislodged and it falls down into this cup, and then when you try to put the stick out, it hits that bearing in this cup and it won't go forward. At least that's what happened last time, and I suspect that's what happened this time. I'm going to have to get these screws out and see. Which is easier said than done. I think they're 3/8, so I'm using a 10. Let me get a magnet. I'll be right back. The first one I took out, it's got the spring and seat in the ball, so it looks good. There's the spring. There's a ball down in there, but he ain't coming out. I can see it. But it is there. So let's check this one. Well, that's a strong magnet. Okay. I don't think that one's there. Nope, it's there too. Now we got left is the bottom one. If they're all four in place, then I've got some other kind of issue. That one's there. So all four of them are there. I've got to get this cap off and figure out why. The only thing it could be is hydraulic fluid getting down in here and it causing too much pressure and not be able to pull down to fill this cup up. Let me dig into it a little deeper and we'll find out. You can see this thing is just beat to death on the end. You can see where the bearings have been under it somehow. Only thing I can figure is when you pull all the way back, it's popping this cone above the bearings because there's 4 dents in it. It's popping the cone above the bearings. The bearings are sitting in below it, and I can't get it. Then I can't get it to push back down. So this piece here must just be worn out. This little cone. It could be sticking inside the housing also. Man, that looks pretty galled up in there. And those 4 bearings, yeah, it's possible. It could be filling up either with fluid and not pushed down because there's fluid in it, or it's popping up so far that it's getting above the bearings, which I think is what's happening. It's getting above the bearings and then it won't push forward and push the stick out. So it really needs this replaced. Looks to me like there's been some type of screw in the bottom of it at one time, and there's nothing like that down in here. There might be. Let me dig around a little more and I'll come back. You know, I don't believe there's supposed to be fluid down in here. There's no seals on this cap, so it's probably been leaking anyway. So if there's a seal bad there and it's pushing fluid down in here, it has nowhere to go. It gets in the bottom of this cap. You could push up, but you'll never be able to push down because there's so much fluid down in there. It'd be like hydraulic lock. And that might be why it works sometimes. Sometimes it don't. When you first start it up, it seems to work okay. That's a clue. And as you run it, it probably fills up with fluid and has so much pressure down inside this cup that you can't push the stick out, which would be pushing this down. Mysterious. I went back and looked at the controls, and it's definitely push this spool down as boom out. I was saying stick, but it's the boom. Push it down as boom out, and that's what I'm having trouble with. And it looks like it's been sitting on top of these bearings. And that's no bueno. So I need to put some type of limit on how far the stick will pull back when you pull back so it don't get on top of these. I could put a spring. Might be able to put a spring down in there, a real strong spring, and leave the bearings out. See what that does. But it's still going to leak. Still going to have that spool out because there shouldn't be fluid here. This was full of fluid, and it shouldn't be. Let me dig a little more. I can't find nothing on the internet, by the way. Nobody has any information, so kind of on my own here. At least for one like this. I've seen all kinds of them putting the springs back in these spools that goes across the shaft, and there's a bearing on both sides. But never one like this. I've never seen one like this before. Okay, I put this cap back on without any bearings in it, and it still won't go down. So So this is galling inside here somehow. From looking down in there, I don't know if you can see it. There's a lot of galling in there. I don't have a hone quite that small, but I may be able to take some of the sharp edges off of this. And I hate to do it too much because I'll wind up with that bearing popping again. See what happens. See what I can find out. Well, got the spool out, and I don't know if you can see it. Down inside there is where a seal should be, but there's only part of it, and I ain't found the rest of it. But that's letting fluid leak past and get into the bottom of that cap, and probably keeping it from pushing down. I guess it's hydrolocking it, or whatever you might call it, hydraulic locking it. But let me see if I can get that seal out and find another one. Looks like it's a square-sided seal. I don't think I have any of them. Well, what happens next is, I guess we go in the morning and try to find one of these lip seals and see if that will keep the... It's got a lip on one side, so I guess it goes towards the pressure side. It looks like the way it come out. And that should keep that cup from filling up. I also got to hone this out somehow and get that one and go down in there, that spool won't. Just get stuck. We'll see what we can do about that. We'll continue this in the morning. If you need to make you a little engine hone for tiny little places, take you a piece of emery cloth and put it on a quarter key, and then you can chuck it up in your drill. This key might be too big. If I can get it to stay in one spot. May have to use a pick. There we go. Now chuck it up in my drill. Grind all the crap out, then you put it in there better. Well, my drill let the smoke out. That should have taken all the burrs off of it. It's just aluminium. I'll spray it out with some brake clean, and it should keep the binding from happening like it's been. Now I've got the spool in here, and it still feels like it's binding. Not as bad as it was. I got the burrs off of this cone, and I got the burrs out of the inside of it. Unless it's up in here. It could be up in there. Let me clean this and see. This has another plunger inside that may be spring loaded. It has to slide up inside of there. It could be binding there. We put a little oil on it. And just for poop and laughter, I put some oil down in that cap to see if it would hold it up hydraulically when I try to push this down. Gosh. It's hard to get down in there with oil in it. We may be on to something here. And I'd say with full hydraulic pressure, if it's getting underneath here, there's no way you can push that down with the lever. Get that little bit of oil out. Yep, big difference. So I think we're on to something. That leaking past that seal, getting oil down in this cup. Getting oil down in that very bottom cup down in there. And the first time I took it apart, there was a ball bearing down in there, but it felt the same the last time, but it does relieve itself. So I believe that hydraulic fluid is leaking down in there and filling this cup up, and then I'm no longer able, with hydraulic pressure, I'm trying to fight solid pressure. So that's good to know. We'll get that seal in there and that should take care of this little problem. Okay, it's the next day. I'm back to the hydraulic shop. I got what looks like the lip seal. It looks similar. It's 5/8. I guess it'll work. It looks like it's a little thicker. So I don't know if this is shrink or this is really hard. This one's soft. Let's see if I can get it in there and make it work. Goes back inside there with the lip in. So we'll see what happens. Gonna go inside there. Here's the spool. It fits over the spool pretty tight. So hopefully it ain't so tight when I go to push these edges through there. That nerve sharp as a razor. It doesn't cut it again like it was before. Let me see if I can get it in there. We'll come back. I've got a seal tool for putting these in. I got a small one. I don't know whether it'll work or not. I don't know how to work it. That ain't gonna work. It's too big of a part, I guess. Or I just ain't doing it right. The lip goes in. I reckon I got the lip in. I don't like the same kind of seal. Oh, that's a double lip. This may not fit. Oh boy, I pushed it all the way in there. Well, I stuck my pinky back in there and it popped right in. How about that? It being a double lip seal, I don't know if it makes any difference. Might. That extra lip on this other side though may hang on everything going in. That could be a problem. I'll get some hydraulic fluid put on this spool. Well, there's one. Now that's going to take some pressure. Well, I finally got it back in there and I forgot to turn my camera back on. But I've got the cap back on with the 4 set screws with the springs and ball bearings in it. So that's a detent. I'm guessing that's a detent for when you pull the boom up, you can actually get the pin in it. I've been thinking about that, why this would have a detent and the rest of them don't. Like a log splitter, it'll pull back and it'll hold. See, it's staying because of these bearings. You've actually got to push it off to make it quit. And I'm betting that that's locking that boom. You push it back and lock the boom so it'll hold up where you can get the pin in it for travel. I don't know that for sure, but it's the only one that's different, and the boom is the one you have to put the pin in. So that's a possibility that that's what that's for. I guess if a guy wanted to, he could always take these bearings out and take the detent out of it. But it's there for a reason, so I'm going to leave it. I've got the seal in, these little 79-cent seals. I've got every kind of seal known, but I don't have these, and I don't know what to call them, so I could order a box. We'll see what happens. Let's get this put back on the machine and hook back up and see if it works. Okay, I've got it all hooked back up. Got it hooked up to the machine. I guess we'll start it up and take the pin out of it and see if we can dig without spraying fluid everywhere. I don't see a fluid show. The fluid that was there is already on it. Thinking so far. Let's get the pin disengaged, we'll see what happens. Well, that seemed to have done the trick. Make sure we ain't got no fluid spraying out everywhere down here. I need to clean it off with a carb cleaner, that way I can tell what's fresh and what ain't. Let me come back and see. Well, that worked out pretty good. My battery died about the time I started spraying carburetor cleaner. I don't see any leaks anywhere. Oh, something stung me right in the eyeball. A skeeter's out today for some reason. But that's got this backhoe working. At least I can extend that boom without any issues at all. Before, you had to put everything you had into the handle. I guess that little bit of a leak is what caused our issue. It shouldn't be a problem no more. I'm going to grease everything now that I've got everything extended. And I wish they'd shut some of these cars down, but that's all right. But I appreciate you guys riding along. I learned something. I hope you did too. That those little detent caps can get hydraulic fluid in them. If they get hydraulic fluid in them, you can't extend your boom. I've never seen anything like it. But it's working now. And it's working like a charm, so we'll see how long that lasts. I appreciate you guys for hanging out and riding along with me. And please subscribe. I don't have enough subscribers yet. I've only got just a couple hundred. But all the subscribers I could get would help. It doesn't cost you anything. And hit that notification button when we do put something else up. You can see what we're doing or see what we're into. Thanks a lot, you guys, for watching. Stay clean, everybody.